Hi, welcome to Story Bin Writers Room Improv. We have two great guests today, Paul Zeidman and Dan Jones. And let's get started. Let's have you guys introduce yourself, and then we'll pull a story idea out of the hat and play with it.
All right, sounds good. I'll go first. Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Zeidman. I'm a screenwriter based in San Francisco. I also run the screenwriting blog MaximumZ.blog. Jeff has been an interviewee on that blog a couple of times, touting his wares. Currently working on a micro/low budget project with a producer who I recently connected with, and having a lot of fun developing that. And I'd like to say I'm an award-winning screenwriter of thrilling tales and ripping yarns. And check it all out, MaximumZ.blog.
Great. And Dan's an old friend. Really great to have you in on the show here. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, great to be here, Jeff. I'm Dan Sosaway Jones. I'm a former chairman of the Ponca Tribe of Indians of Oklahoma. I'm also a scholastic author. Currently just did a children's book, A Living Ghost and Mischievous Monsters. Right now I'm working on a graphic novel, and that's basically what I do.
And you're also a sculptor, quite a good sculptor.
That's true. I've done, I was a finalist for a piece that's going on in the Washington, D.C. Mall for American Indian veterans. Out of hundreds and hundreds of sculptors, we came in as 5 finalists. So, of course, I don't know what order that was in, but we came close to the prize.
Yeah,
that's a one-in-a-lifetime, every sculptor's dream is to have a work on the mall in D.C. And right now I'm currently doing 2 bronzes for the Chicago Institute of Art. For their museum, actually.
Great. Okay, so let's pull up the story wheel here. Let's pick a story. "22. A guy wakes up dead in a hot tub, gives his wife a kiss, and heads off to work, but begins to suspect that something is terribly wrong." So he wakes up dead in a hot tub, kisses his wife goodbye, goes to work, and begins to suspect that something is terribly off.
Wakes up dead?
Is this in the vein of Rod Serling, or is this a total
Almost,
comedy?
yeah.
Or is this,
Yeah, it could be a zombie comedy for all. It could go, a lot of different directions. It's almost like you see a guy in a pool in a hot tub and he's drowned. You're like, oh crap. And then he gets up, goes in, has breakfast, kisses his wife goodbye, and goes to work like it was a normal day. But then begins to figure out that something's wrong here.
That one's interesting.
It starts decaying.
That's what I was thinking. He starts to decay. That's what I was thinking too.
Right. Well, these are all things to play with. This is just a weird ass idea to play with. That's the intention.
Yeah, I think this one, because it's so unusual that it seems to offer, the chance to just, I'm going to take a hard left turn as often as I can with this story. Because, it starts out really weird. I mean, you can just have fun making it more weird as it goes on. So
absolutely
trying to wrap my head around this whole thing. I guess just the wakes up dead part, that's, that throws me, but it kind of it makes me stumble but try to regain my footing, so to speak.
It's the kind of thing that's fun to play with. And it's almost like, it reminds me of the Bizarro comic books in Superman, where everything is backwards and weird. It's the kind of thing that can be fun to poke and play with and try different options for.
It's certainly a unique take on the zombie comedy idea.
Right.
Because usually it's about, there have been a few films where, it's told from the zombie's point of view. So this would kind of be like that, but it's a zombie who doesn't know he's a zombie yet.
Or this is completely normal for him, we find out, Like he knows he's a zombie. Of course he wakes up dead. He is dead, but there's still something going wrong in his world. There's dozens of different ways to bend this. But, if you guys want to play with it, we'll play for 40 minutes, see where it goes.
Well, it's because that's what I'm thinking is that, he wakes up and maybe he died in the hot tub. And so, but, maybe there's also been a zombie virus going around. And so, he died, but, he doesn't, and maybe it's not realized in the beginning that everybody knows he's dead. Even he doesn't know it yet.
Right.
I could see it going from a comedy to a very serious horror film.
Yeah.
In the fact that, he wakes up dead is kind of funny, but, and then he has to stop death or the destruction that death is causing his body. And when his mind starts deteriorating, he starts becoming this dangerous creature. And
also maybe he also, he's starting to develop this ravenous appetite for human flesh. It starts out small, keeps getting gradually bigger and bigger. That it could be a combination of comedy and horror, but also, you could also have fun with the gore aspect of it. I mean, I'm not a fan of that, but if it's done for a comedic effect, then it can be a lot of fun and very silly.
Yeah, it lends itself to that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I don't like horror myself, but it seems like the comedic aspect gives us more of a chance to play with it.
What does he do for a living? Is he a scientist or is he a doctor?
I would play up the mundaneness of whatever he does. So like maybe he's just an office drone, or he's middle management, and and so something to really emphasize, that nobody notices that he's starting to change. Maybe he's always had this it's like a pale complexion type of thing, and now it's just starting to get more gray and ashen with each day. And he's starting to look more strained, and people are just like, oh well, stress of the office, it's going to do that to you. Cut back on caffeine, that sort of thing. But nobody realizes that his body is starting to deteriorate.
He has an internal conflict where he's dying, and he's got to try to stop the effects of dying because he's still alive. Maybe he has something so important or critical of him that, might be life-saving or something to somebody else, that he can't die, but yet he's still dying and can't stop it.
And if you really want to go over the top of it, maybe the thing is maybe his daughter's getting married. They had a strained relationship, and, their reconciliation is him walking her down the aisle. And of course, the news reports say that after 2 weeks, they start to show more zombie-like. And so, of course, the 2 days from that, it's the wedding day. So.
Right.
You're laughing at that, and that's the key part of it. You want to really, have fun with the concept of it. And so what's something we haven't seen before? We've seen, Night of the Living Dead, we've seen all the zombie movies, and, we've seen Shaun of the Dead. But to really take this approach, what if you mixed a zombie comedy with a wedding comedy?
Right. And to what extent does he seem dead? What if this is more just normal and he's not necessarily decomposing, but it's just taking a possibility in another direction? What if this was quite normal? And I don't know. I don't know where to go with it, because it says that he gradually begins to notice that something is really wrong.
Well, see, that could play into it as well. So maybe after somebody dies, they don't realize that they're dead. So, they're not going to suddenly, oh man, I don't have a pulse. What's going on? Or that it's because the body is still functioning, but it's slightly different. That there's still brain activity, but as we discussed, he's starting to go. His body is starting to break down, but in the traditional way. But we have fun with it, and what's the effect that it has on his life? What is the point that he realizes, oh my God, I'm turning into I'm one of them, or does he even realize that?
Right. And let me read the idea again, just to get it back up there. A guy wakes up dead in a hot tub, gives his wife a kiss, and heads off to work, but begins to suspect that something is terribly wrong. Now, along that line that you were talking about, Paul, it reminds me of a Alfred Hitchcock story from I read when I was a kid, and it was a couple cavalry soldiers who get in a big battle with Indians, and it's a really hardcore battle, and they're riding away afterwards going, that was quite a battle, and man, it was a close thing. And as they're riding along, they look down and they don't have shadows, and they realize that they're ghosts and that they were killed in the battle. It always stuck with me in the brain that you don't know you're dead right away. Or you discover you're a ghost or something like that.
How does he know that he died?
Well, I don't know. I mean, what it seems to infer is that he doesn't suspect that. He may have just thought, oh, I nodded off in the tub, I'll go dry off and go to work. He didn't necessarily notice that he was underwater when he first woke up.
And how do we as the audience know that he died?
Well, because the movie starts with a guy underwater in a hot tub, drowned. Yeah.
Or maybe he dies and comes back to life in like a hospital setting, and he comes back to life and they all say he comes back to life, but actually he did die and he's dying and decaying as he's going.
Okay.
And, they convince him that he's still alive, but, he's got to tell these people, well, I'm dying.
Right.
Okay, I just want to interject something real quick because I was thinking, like, how would someone not know that they were dead? So I immediately went back to The Sixth Sense, where Bruce Willis, all these things happen. We think it's from one perspective. And then like that last 10 minutes, the big reveal, you see everything, it's the same scene, but with a slightly different view, realizing, oh my God, the answer was right in front of me the whole time. So not that he wakes up dead, not like he's underwater in the hot tub. He could just be like, leaning back in the hot tub and he's just kind of like, his eyes open and he moves, not like waking up from, a startled, waking up from a dream type of thing. But, he wakes up. But see, again, that's the thing. It's giving it away. I know that's not necessarily the log line for the story, but using that just as a basis to set up the story is good. But, man wakes up in his hot tub, I guess wakes up dead. I guess to me, it kind of ruins, it kind of like spoils the story from the outset. It's like saying, man discovers he's a ghost type of thing. It's like, well, but that's fun of half the fun is the discovery of it. But setting up that kind of story, and I just love the fact, I love the idea, like he wakes up, kisses his wife, and goes off to work, and maybe he from the way he's acting, or the things he says, or the way he's interacting with his coworkers, or his family and his coworkers, that to him something's very off. But maybe he's such a boring humdrum kind of guy, nobody realizes it, while it's happening. Because, like this may be the most exciting thing that's ever happened for him before, that, he's always been a very milquetoast, very, just a boring, gray, vanilla kind of guy. And all of a sudden, he's starting to become interesting, but it just so happens that he's also dead. He's the undead, the walking dead.
So is it kind of the story of someone with a sort of a radical awakening where they almost realize they have 24 hours left to live and they start to change their life completely, like Scrooge does in A Christmas Carol?
See, I wasn't thinking that I wasn't thinking he goes after the changes. Like they're happening to him and he has to adjust. But these are things that he's totally unprepared for. He was a boring, kind of a wimpy guy before, but now he's suddenly, maybe he gets hit by a car and he doesn't feel any pain, but maybe his arms hanging up had a really odd angle, and he stands up and shoves it back into place from the big crack. He's like, wow, like my back feels the best it's felt in years. And so just that as his body is deteriorating, he's starting to become, more interesting. He's becoming like really excited to be himself now. And so maybe he's able to like really take advantage of that. And he's able to go and do all those things that he would never have the courage to do before. You know, like, oh, I'm going to go skydiving. and of course, the chute doesn't open. He hits the ground and just goes splat. But he's able to pull himself together or something like that. Or he's just, he walks into the hardware store. He says, I need all the crazy glue you've got. And he's like putting himself back together.
Right. That's one of the few things that crazy glue actually works on. They use it in surgery even.
Yeah.
Because it sticks skin together so well.
Right. Exactly. Or, he's, trying to keep himself together because like I said before, he's got to keep it all together figuratively and literally for his daughter's wedding coming up. I just really like that idea.
So he's someone who's been sleepwalking through life, who is now starting to wake up in some fundamental way.
Yeah.
Even if it's not like a huge radical awakening, he's just more like a little more aware and a little more aggressive and a little more curious, and all the things that used to be numb and out of touch are now awakening.
You seeing because maybe before he really played it safe, and he was always, that's what contributed to him kind of being boring. And so now he's like, I can do all these things and like I never done before. It's so exciting.
I see a kind of an ego death here of if only a reverse of an ego death, that where the guy is so boring that it takes dying to bring him to life. Maybe something like that. I don't know. When he first comes back to life, then we see how boring he is, and then he gradually becomes this very interesting. Death brings him back to life, or gives him life that he never had before.
Sense of mission or vitality.
Death makes him interesting.
Maybe he's also like has to come up with a speech for his daughter's wedding, and he's been fretting over that, so that he's got like some creative task that these new senses or whatever sense of himself informs what he's writing for her. And the other thing that occurs to me is that there's almost like a potential like Addams Family type twist in this, or I don't know if you ever saw The Munsters. We used to watch that when we were kids, and the Herman Munster character, something completely wild would happen to him, and he would just shake it off and be like, that was funny. Like, it doesn't even faze him at all. But what's interesting is that we're really looking at like the possibilities for like half a dozen different stories and trying to figure out which is the most interesting train to get on here. And we're really kind of sorting through the possibilities. But it feels like a comedy, and the idea that he's sort of discovering that there's something really wrong with him as he discovers that he's much more alive and awake than he's ever been before, also, with his daughter's wedding impending. So there's a sense of urgency or mission, or the need to hold things together, or the need to pull things together if he's got to write like a speech for the wedding, and he's terrible at that. So he's out of his element trying to come up with something for his daughter.
And also maybe, because he was such a boring guy when he was alive, everybody's expectations are so low for him.
Right.
And so as he starts to get more confident, in all of the things that he can do now, that is reflected in, the way he presents himself to everybody. Maybe,
right.
Like the cocky next door neighbor who the guy always had the better car or the bigger house. And now, and he always was intimidated by that. And now he's not. And so now he kind of like, has found confidence in the afterlife. And, not that the neighbor gets his comeuppance, but, he, puts him in his place type of thing. Like he gets one last good dig in, as payback for all the years of, kind of, put him down, or just kind of made him feel even smaller than he already felt.
Right. Kind of reminds me of Beetlejuice in a certain way, but I'm not sure if that's useful to us in any way. The other thing is like, what if he's like an advertising guy, and all of a sudden he's like kind of never has a great idea, but he's kept his job, and all of a sudden he's pops up in a meeting with some whacked out idea and everybody looks at him like, that's brilliant. Where did that come from?
I think it's Marvel, but there's a superhero that's similar to this. He dies and he can't be killed. If he loses a limb, it grows back. I can't think. It's real popular.
Deadpool.
What is it? Deadpool.
Deadpool.
Deadpool, right?
Deadpool, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
I was thinking it was something of the theme of the thing is if some people are so boring, it takes dying to come to life.
Uh-huh. There's a thing in, I don't know where it comes from, but it's called a jitney coupe. And the image, it's of a car that's really a rattle trap, and it gets them to where they're going and then completely falls apart right then. So I can almost see like he pulls all this off and sees his daughter off on this incredible thing and then falls the rest of the way apart. I don't know. That's kind of a bittersweet ending for a comedy, but we're not trying to solve all the problems here. We're just trying to like have fun exploring possibilities for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and maybe we'll end up with a plot that works, or maybe we'll just have some fun possibilities with a lot of questions remaining, and that's perfectly fine too. We're not trying to solve the whole thing here.
Well, I think, you know, especially with this kind of story with the, you know, the zombies and his body's decaying, there really is only one ending, is that, you know, he's got to kind of like make things right that he couldn't when he was alive, but he has to do it before, you know, he either, you know, becomes a ravenous, you know, flesh-craving, mindless monster, or his body just, you know, totally breaks down and, you know, he, you know, kind of crumbles. So
Right.
I think, so I mean, I can see the, you know, the very ending is that I just keep thinking he's got all this mottled flesh. It's his daughter on the cheek before she gets in the limo with her new husband and drives away, and their family's waving and his hand falls off or something
Right.
like that.
And he has to keep mortician's makeup in his pocket so he can keep looking good.
I was thinking of it like he has some kind of freezes himself at night or something to keep himself from deteriorating. He has to be in a very cold room or something at night.
Or he
Right.
could inject, or he could keep injecting himself with embalming fluid just to kind of stay together.
Or with blood, does he have to keep getting not transfusions, but get blood or something like that? And of course, if he was a vampire, he wouldn't die at the end. He would just be different at the end.
Yeah, but that's a totally different movie.
Totally, yeah. But we don't have to necessarily like solve the ending here.
Mm.
We're just trying to, we're doing a pretty good job. We got a ticking clock. We got a sense of mission. We have a changing protagonist. It seems like he would have an interesting dilemma that like this change that's come over him is simultaneously destroying him and creating him. Like it's the worst thing that's ever happened to him and it's the best thing that's ever happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
Which is similar to Michael Dorsey's dilemma in Tootsie, that becoming a woman was the best thing that ever happened to him and the worst. His life is coming together and falling apart simultaneously, and that's funny.
He's got to keep himself together for this wedding. I guess all of these mechanisms for how to keep him together.
Right.
As he's learning new power because he no longer fears death, so he can do all of these, you know, skydiving and stuff that he would never do when he was a boring guy. And he keeps getting more and more confident of himself, and you know, he quits his job maybe.
You know, I was also saying the whole process of putting a wedding together is, as everybody knows, is really stressful. So maybe it put a strain on his marriage. You know,
Right.
you said like he kisses his wife and goes off to work. And so maybe the organizing of the wedding was already putting cracks in an already stressed marriage for him and his wife. And somehow, you know, him with this new confidence and just, you know, more fearlessness, you know, this is what, you know, she didn't realize, you know, this is who he was. And, you know, she sees him in a whole new light and is really attracted to him. And so, you know, that maybe, you know, his dying rekindles their marriage.
And so he's really living on borrowed time.
Yeah.
The other thing I thought could be part of a fun ending, you're talking about fearlessness and skydiving. You know, what if he's late for the wedding and the daughter's like, oh, my dad, what's he up to now? He's so boring. He's God knows. And then he like parachutes into the wedding like this wild dude in the life of the party. And,
Or maybe he ends up somewhere else and he has this frantic race to get to the wedding from wherever he's
Right.
at, kind of like around the world in 80 days.
right.
This frantic thing of trying to get to the wedding and keep himself together while he does. But there's another character involved here, his wife, that I haven't put my head around her yet. What is she?
And we don't have any kind of antagonist at this point, like a physical person with whom he could be in conflict.
I think there could be a lot of smaller, like subplot antagonists. I don't know. I don't really think you actually need a primary, physical antagonist. I think just the fact that, like you said, he's living on borrowed time. So
Yeah.
his own body is his antagonist.
Mhm.
He's trying to hold out as long as he can, but the natural order of things are not working with him. They're doing everything they can to destroy him. So he's really is literally a race against time.
Mhm.
For especially in what Dan was saying about him skydiving and ending up in the wrong place. I can easily see he's maybe a strong wind blows him way off target. And he descends down and like ends up knocking a motorcyclist off of their bike. And he's never ridden a motorcycle before, but why not? No time like the present. So he's in his tuxedo and he like straps off the harness and just zooms down the road and makes this phenomenal action hero type entrance into the church because he if anything he's got to get there to give his daughter away because really that's one of his primary goals for this whole thing is to be there for his daughter when she really needed him.
Right. And I think it's also kind of to be something for his daughter instead of being a nothing, to be a man of adventure or a man who shows up with a lot going on instead of a schlub who just kind of limps through life on, half power or something like that.
Yeah, he always felt like he wasn't the man his daughter, or he wasn't the father his daughter needed. He was there,
Right.
he helped raise her, but he wasn't a strong male role model. That he was always kind of a disappointment. And so his new, personality, his new outlook on life really, changes things around for both him and the way other people see that, everybody, maybe everybody saw him like this. He was, you're just a schmo, but what happened to you? Like, why you're suddenly interesting. You were never like this before. And, he can't, I don't know, can he come right out and say, I died or is this an ongoing, thing in this world where, people are dying and then coming back to life and just, is he a rare situation? Is he a commonplace situation?
Right. Is it a virus that
Right.
makes you seem dead? Like there's people on slabs sitting up going, I'm alive. Or people are like, oh crap, you came back to life. Maybe that's more normal these days. I don't know.
Yeah. Or like I think Dan said maybe he is a scientist. And
Totally. And he could be keeping himself going with potions and all that,
yeah.
limping along. Maybe he even solves it by the end of the story that he's found a way to stay alive. And in the process of all fighting through this, he's come to life as well. So he really is a different person by the end of the story for what he's gone through to fight off the disease and get to his daughter's wedding with a good speech.
I think him finding a solution to his zombieism, I think that's a bit of a cheat. As I guess, it's a happy ending, but I think I like it better where, it really is a ticking clock and it's about, will he be able to do this thing before the very end? Because I just like that more because, and like you could maybe drop a hint at the very end, like maybe someone else finds the formula he was working on or something, or the wrong person gets it now. off the top of my head. But I guess it would feel weird to have him still be around at the end of the story.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like he has to wrap things up. Yes, he has to leave things on a positive note for everybody else before he's totally gone.
So he's working on a potion to prolong life, like that, and it's kind of the new thing. There's a lot of very wealthy people today putting a lot of money into trying to, prolong life,
Right.
Genetic studies and that kind of thing. So he finds this elixir, he finds this potion that will actually prolong life, and he uses himself as a guinea pig, and it kills him. But it doesn't kill him. He comes back to life he comes back to life after the potion killed him that was supposed to keep him alive. So he's dead alive, or alive dead.
Yeah,
Right.
that works, because if you have
I could see something like that.
Yeah, because then you have too many people, and then you have it happening with too many other people. And just to keep it like the story focused on him, like make him a true individual, I think that works even better.
Yeah. And does it, I'm trying to think of, is there a way that makes sense within the context of the story we're playing with here to be able to give his daughter a real chunk of money as a wedding gift, a couple $100,000 or something, that maybe because his thing is on the right path, he gets a payout from his company, even though it failed on him. They're like, well, you did something, here's your bonus, or something like that. I don't know. Then it's not, he hasn't become a trillionaire and defeated death, but
Right.
he had one incremental step that earns him enough to give her a nice send-off.
Well, maybe his potion works. He just took too much or something like that, and it killed him.
Right.
Or maybe it has something to do with like the founder of the company or the lab that he works for. So maybe somehow that other guy was a guinea pig too, and and somehow he ends up leaving a lot of money to this guy who he knows he's going to die anyway, so he bequeaths it to his wife and daughter.
Right.
Well, there could be an opportunity for a lot of espionage here, and maybe another position for the wife character, a greater position for her as maybe his assistant or something of that nature.
Yeah, and the espionage brings up the possibility of a more like a central antagonist as well, where he really did figure it out, but they monkeyed with his dose to get rid of him.
Right. That's good. I like that.
Right.
Yeah,
that's kind of like
it could be a competing genetic company. Like that he works for.
Exactly.
He works for the second best genetics company in the world, and the top one is they'll sabotage anybody who tries to muscle in on their turf. And they somehow find out about his discovery, and so they figure the only way they can keep things under wraps is to get rid of him.
Right, and maybe his assistant is a traitor, and is reporting to the number one company. But that makes for some interesting conflict.
Maybe the wife discovers that he is dead, and it freaks her out so bad she divorces him and runs off. The competing company gets a hold of her and causes her to work for them to, get his formula. So she becomes an antagonist.
I like the idea more that they kidnap her too, because they want the formula. So the only way they're going to get it is maybe to kidnap her and the daughter.
It also reminds me of the movie DOA, which is where someone is poisoned and is dying within 24 hours or 48. They have 48 hours to figure out who has murdered them before they die. Almost some aspect of that. And it's possible he maybe, just if he's becoming more of a man of adventure, that maybe he wins a bunch of money on, in a gambling, stops in Atlantic City and places a big bet and wins big and has some money to give her.
Or he saves somebody of significance. maybe like something's going on at like a, you know, the Ritz downtown, and he saves like a foreign potentate or something.
Right.
And, you know, in gratitude, you know, the guy gets a jewel encrusted crown, or here are some baubles from my kingdom, and you know, it's like
Right.
$10 million worth of jewels.
Right. So, I mean, it's not an elixir of life after death. This is more an elixir of longevity, the fountain of youth.
Yeah.
Well, what would work even better is that, you know, it's kind of like not necessarily a straightforward fountain of youth, but it
Helps you live longer.
Right. It's a substance that, you know, doesn't do exactly as advertised.
Doesn't turn you 21 again.
Exactly.
Right.
But somehow, like, he's working on the formula and messes up, you know, and accidentally takes it, but it does kill him, but it also rejuvenates him. So the competing company is trying to figure out, like, how did he do it? And they can't figure it out. Maybe they try it, and of course, you know, they, you know, I don't know, reverse age somebody, or they, you know, it has a lot of the comedic effects. You know, things go horribly wrong.
Right.
And you know, and the more they try, the worse they get it. You know, this guy suddenly has two heads. I don't know, but you know, just that he's the reason that they're trying to get him to get the correct formula, and he doesn't even know what he did wrong, maybe.
Right. Or what he did right.
Yeah.
He's not sure why it worked.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the fountain of youth kills him. I like the fact the fountain of youth killed him. It's kind of like Ponce de Leon. What do you be careful what you wish for? You know?
Right. And the hot tub could be like kind of like a fountain of youth. Like that's the reason why he woke up the next morning.
Yeah, it's kind of against his boring character, I think. I don't know. I was kind of having trouble with that. Well, maybe he just dies in the shower or something. I don't know. Doesn't seem like the hot tub kind of guy, but he could be.
Maybe it's the one place he found solitude. The only place he could get away and just kind of be alone with his thoughts, and you know,
he does his best work there.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
maybe this is a perfectly natural place to stop. I mean, we cobbled together a fun story, and there's massive questions remaining, but that's not our mission here. We're not trying to get this rocket to the moon. We're just trying to experiment with the design for a rocket kind of thing. And I think this was fun, and it was interesting, and we had a good time with it. And, you know, part of this podcast is just to show different writers tackling ideas they've never seen before, so people can get a look into how do experienced writers grapple with a story like this and try and make something out of it. And partly just the fun of playing with unexpected ideas or brand new ideas, that kind of thing. But this was fun, and it was great having you guys here, and that was a fun session.
It was, and yeah, I think what's really nice about it is that, you know, we came up with this story that there were so many elements already like there for the taking, but we were able to put a unique spin on them. So, you know, everyone knows zombie films and everyone knows wedding films, and the science gone wrong films.
Right.
And just to like put them all in a blender and hit puree and just like see what came up, you know, it's a lot of fun, and it's a really fun concept.
Yeah.
And we also don't have to go make it work.
I agree.
We just get to dream it up and drop it off.
That was a lot of fun. I mean, just when you hear an idea or a concept, and your brain immediately starts thinking like, well, how can I play with this? How can I make it work? And I think that's part of the creative process that a lot of writers really get into. And I think just being able to, you know, have at least two other people as sounding boards, and just kind of, you know, I mean, a lot of the things we came up with were just off the top of our heads.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you coming to do this, and it was fun playing with you guys.
It was a lot of fun.
It has been, yeah. Hopefully I'll see you again soon when I recover here. So,
so long.
Bye-bye now.
All right. Thanks
All
very
right,
much,
bye-bye.
Jeff.